Now, if there are better ways of eliminating terrorism without going to a mosque and Islamic centers, then tell us. They cannot find any solution. And if there is no solution to that, then I believe the NYPD is within its rightful law enforcement jurisdiction to go where the criminals are coming from. Because when the mafias are destroying lives, they don't come to the Muslim community. They go to the Italian and the Russian community. Now, when the terrorists are coming from the Muslim community, you expect them not to go to the Muslim community. Doesn't make any sense. So my position is public and private. I am for weeding out any form of terrorism because they are criminals and they are not civilized, and their goal is to murder and murder everybody, anytime, anywhere. And I fully support Commissioner for taking appropriate action in making sure that we don't see another 9/11, not in New York, nowhere else. And that is my position on it. And my statement can be found on my website, muslimcommunityreport.com. I have a lengthy report about justifying my position.
Beautiful. And this is almost just similar with what Boko Haram is doing in Nigeria. And if you're not supporting what Boko Haram is doing in Nigeria, you cannot support what, if Muslims are doing a criminal act here, you can't support that
is terrorism. No matter who they are, where they are not to be sheltered, they are not to be given mercy, they are not to be negotiated with. They must be profiled, they must be weeded out, and they must be eliminated. Otherwise, we're going to continue to face them. And unfortunately, their goals are completely different from ours.
I know you are operating your own school here in New York City. But there's also a new thing here lately about charter schools. And every community wants to have their own charter school. And considering the population of the minority population in New York City, if every child goes into charter schools, would that bring about the end of the public school? Or wouldn't that be another problem?
You know, my take on it is that it is a travesty where we live in the most developed society in the world. Especially we live in the most prosperous city in the world. And yet people who look like you and me have our children languishing in failing, gang-infested, drug peddling public schools. It's a travesty. Now, we have moral obligation to making sure that every child, regardless of zip code or color, receives the maximum educational attainment that the United States of America is known to be able to provide. If America is spending $1 trillion to fight wars in the Middle East, America has a moral obligation to making sure that every educational institution can provide top-rated educational achievement. Since that's not the case, charter schools are publicly funded, privately managed. And there are success stories behind charter schools. And you've seen parents crying because their children failed to win the lottery. Now we're in New York. Education should be free. But now people are dying just to put their children in charter schools. So the public schools will not fade away. But I support 100% to set up school system that not only educates our children, but give them top-of-the-line education. Otherwise, every great nation succeeds because of knowledge, and every great empire fails because of lack of it.
Now let's jump to Africa, our motherland. And I just want us to deal with Boko Haram as a terrorist organization, an Islamist terrorist organization that's blowing things up in Nigeria and trying to force the authorities to impose Sharia law regardless of what religious beliefs you have. In Nigeria, we have Christians, we have Muslims, we have traditionalists. Can we live in harmony? And you are one of the leaders that is trying to create change. How can you get these three groups together? How are we going to get these three groups together so that we can dialogue, have discourse, and solve this problem?
Well, number one, anybody who has any small knowledge about Quran will understand that in Quran, God is saying you can never ever impose your will on anybody else. You cannot force people into submission. You cannot force people into accepting your way of life. You cannot force people to convert. Even your children, you are not able to force them to your way of belief. The prophet who brought the religion to us, God told him, you don't have power to make people Muslim, nor are you responsible to making them Muslim. All you have to do is live a life that they love to copy.
Right.
And those who love your way of living will copy you. Those who don't like your way of living, don't force them. Number one. Number two, religion is a matter of godly guidance.
Okay.
Now, God makes you Christian, God makes you Muslim, God makes you traditionalist, whatever it is. But whatever you believe, do it so well and live it so well so that other people will love to find out more about you and join you. Any religion that you have to force people to join is not worthy of even knowing. And Islam certainly is not a religion that God wants you to force people. There are people who say that Islam was spread based on sword, come convert or we cut your head.
Right.
If that was the case, then Quran cannot be truthful. And Quran said, La ikraha fi din, you cannot force people into submission. That means that their submission is invalid because it is done on the dress, and anything that is done on the dress is not, you're not responsible for it. So whether it's a Boko Haram or whether it's this organization or this movement in Somalia, if they use Quran correctly, they will never ever hurt a single soul into submission. They will never ever hurt a single soul because of religious differences. Number one, the religion is not theirs. Number two, the lives of people are sacred to them. And number three, how could you bomb a religious household where people go, religious setting, people go for divinely, mission. They are right, they are wrong, that's not your business. So in Africa, the number one thing we have to do is we have to come as Africans. That's the fourth identity.
Okay.
Now religion, there are some people who say, oh, you got to choose religion before African. No, your identity is African. Today, if I'm in Russia, France, New York, everybody knows I'm an African.
Right.
But they may not know I'm a Muslim or Christian or whatever. Unless I talk to them or they see me, then they will identify me with Islamic religion.
Right.
But my identity is my God-given identity, which is African. Now, I happen to be Muslim, you happen to be Christian, whatever, that's another thing. But the identity is African. And for anything else to divide us to a point where we can kill other African is an insane and need to be completely stopped. And we must come together as people who love Africa, which provides so much to the world, should not be a ground for this hatred, these criminal elements, these Al-Qaeda inspired crazy people. And certainly they can never ever justify it using Quran. The problem, unfortunately, with my own religion is that you have so many people who wrote books. These are scholars and imams, but they always wrote books based on their own personality, based on their point of view. Has nothing to do...
Interpretation.
Yes, has nothing to do with the reality.
Okay. So
now anything that contradicts the Quran to us must be rejected regardless of where it comes from.
So how are you going to change some of the imams' thinking so that they can be on the same wavelength with you? You, when I say you, I just don't mean you personally, but you are a group of people who are thinking alike, want to see things done right in Africa. How are you people going to collectively get all these imams in Africa to understand where you're coming from?
Well, first of all, you know, actions speak louder than words.
Okay.
We can talk until tomorrow.
Right.
Or as a matter of fact, until next year and beyond.
Right.
Nothing will change.
Okay.
2 years ago, I have an Islamic center.
Okay.
A synagogue serving the Jewish community in the Bronx went out of business.
Right.
And the Jewish worshippers had no place to worship.
Right.
Somebody came and talked to me about their plight.
Okay.
And I said, this is an opportunity I don't want to lose.
Okay.
I would love to have the synagogue move to my building so that we have a masjid and synagogue, first of its kind in the state of New York.
Okay.
If we can do that and we do it well, this will be something that can be copied, because there are a lot of Muslims, people like Boko Haram, will kill us for allowing a synagogue even near a mosque.
Right.
But now it's a reality. Not only is a reality, but it's been widely written. And now every newspaper, every channel is talking about it. Now in Israel, there was a debate, and to my understanding is that it went to their main rabbi, and the main rabbi gives a verdict saying that the Jewish worshippers can worship in a mosque, because Muslims and Jews believe in the same God, therefore no problem. So already we have achieved one step toward unifying the people of this world. And if we continue to do that, slowly we will gain the understanding that yes, we may be different, we see things differently, we worship even different deities, but we are human beings who came from pretty much same place and should care about each other, and regardless of the differences. And that was also what led us to call for the unified condemnation of Boko Haram, so that the Christians will say, if the Muslim imams are willing to come and distance themselves from Boko Haram, then we can tell Boko Haram, you are not Muslim. You're not following your religion, because imams in New York said you are not part of them. And they're practicing the same book that you profess to follow. So this is how I believe that is the best way in terms of creating harmony among all creatures. Even not only human beings, but we have to be peaceful to the environment. We have to be peaceful to nature in general. The nature that has produced so much goodness for us, and yet we neglect it so much, and we said bloods and all these things. So we are doing what I believe need to be done in order for other people to copy it. Not just talk about it, but we're walking the walk. And it is beginning right now here in the Bronx.
Can change minds.
Yes.
Last year, I read an article in the New York Amsterdam News, March 31st to April 6, 2011. It was written by President Yoweri Museveni of Uganda, which was very critical of the then Libyan leader, Colonel Gaddafi, as if to say the bombing of Libya served him well. Should an African leader celebrate the bombing of any part of Africa by any power?
The answer is absolutely positively no. Number one, you're dealing with two evils. You're dealing, maybe Gaddafi is an evil regime, but you're dealing with regimes that have demonstrated their lack of respect for you. The Europeans have done so much damage to Africa and have had absolutely no regard for the well-being of Africans. In France, as recently as 60s, they were showing black people like zoo animals. Now, you mean to tell me Gaddafi is worse than somebody who saw you as a zoo animal? Doesn't make any sense. That's number one. Number two, the African Union as imperfect as it is so far, it is a union that needs to be supported and promoted. Now, if you begin now to disenfranchise each other, now the union will collapse.